The midday sun blazed over the endless desert, painting the sand in shades of gold and rust. Ayana, a young Apache woman, moved carefully among the sagebrush and wildflowers, her woven basket half filled with healing herbs. The air shimmered with heat, and only the cry of a distant hawk broke the silence. As she reached for a sprig of desert mint, a sharp hiss cut through the stillness. Before she could move, pain exploded in her leg. A rattlesnake had struck, its fangs sinking deep into her calf. Ayana gasped and fell backward, clutching her leg as the serpent coiled once more before slipping into the shadow of a rock. The world seemed to blur around her as the venom burned through her veins like fire. Her breath came in short, ragged bursts. She tore a strip of leather from her clothing and tried to tie it above the wound, but her hands trembled too violently. Her vision began to dim. The sun was blinding now, and her heart pounded in her ears like a war drum. Then, through the shimmering heat, she saw a figure on horseback, a cowboy, his hat pulled low, dust rising behind him. He had seen her fall. Without hesitation, he spurred his horse forward, galloping across the sand until he reached her side. He jumped down, eyes scanning her quickly. "Easy now," he said in a rough but steady voice. "You've been bit." Ayana tried to speak, but only a weak sound came from her lips. The cowboy tore a piece of fabric from his sleeve and wrapped it tightly above the bite, his hands moving fast and sure. Then he bent low, pressing his ear near her mouth. "Stay with me," he said. "Don't close your eyes." He leaned down, placing his lips to the wound. Ayana flinched, but he didn't stop. He drew the venom out, spitting the poison-laced blood into the dust again and again, his jaw clenched, his brow glistening with sweat. The taste was bitter, metallic. He ignored the danger, working until her breathing steadied and the bluish tint in her skin began to fade. When he finally sat back, panting, his hands were stained with sand and blood. He looked down at her, and she met his gaze, a silent understanding passed between them. "You'll be all right now," he murmured, voice rough with exhaustion. "Just hold on." As the wind swept across the desert, carrying the scent of sage and dust, Ayana's eyes fluttered shut, not from weakness this time, but from trust. The cowboy pressed a hand to her pulse, steady and strong, and for the first time that day, he allowed himself to breathe. The sun had long dipped behind the red mesas, leaving the desert cloaked in twilight. Ayana awoke to the sound of crackling fire and the scent of smoke mixed with sagebrush. Her leg throbbed, but the sharp pain had dulled to an ache. She blinked, disoriented for a moment, until she saw the cowboy sitting nearby, his hat tipped low, the firelight flickering across his weathered face. He had built a small camp beside a cluster of rocks, where the wind was softer. His horse grazed quietly in the dim light, tethered to a juniper bush. The cowboy glanced over as Ayana stirred and offered her a canteen. "Here," he said quietly. "Drink slow." She took it with trembling hands, the cool water easing her parched throat. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse. "You stayed." He gave a small shrug, poking at the fire with a stick. "Couldn't leave you out here alone. That bite would have taken you if I hadn't kept watch." Ayana looked down at her leg. A rough but careful bandage was wrapped around her calf, made from his torn shirt. The marks of the snake were still visible, but the swelling had eased. "You saved me," she whispered. The cowboy shook his head. "Just did what needed doing." "You risked your life," she said. Her gaze lingered on him, his sunburned skin. His hands calloused from rope and reins, his eyes the color of a storm cloud. "Why?" He hesitated before answering, his voice softer now. "Years back, I got lost out here. My horse died, my canteen was empty. Thought I was done for. Some of your people found me, your uncle, maybe. They took me in, fed me, didn't ask for anything. I figured, maybe it was time I returned the favor." Ayana's eyes softened. "Then we are bound by the same path," she said quietly. Kindness repaid with kindness. For a while, neither of them spoke. The fire crackled between them, sparks lifting into the cool night air. Above, the stars began to bloom across the sky, countless, cold, and bright. The cowboy leaned back, his hat tilted toward the heavens. "Funny thing," he said after a pause. "Out here, the world don't care who you are. Apache or cowboy, it's all the same under the stars." She smiled faintly. "Maybe that is how it should be." The wind whispered across the sand, carrying the scent of mesquite and distant rain. Ayana pulled his worn blanket tighter around her shoulders, watching the firelight dance across his face. For the first time since the snake's strike, she felt safe. As the flames dimmed to embers, the cowboy added one last piece of wood, its light flickering against the cliffs. He looked at her one final time before sleep. "Rest now," he said softly. "You'll need your strength come morning." Ayana nodded, her eyes closing as the stars wheeled silently overhead. The desert night held them both, strangers no longer, bound by chance, courage, and the simple grace of survival.